You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 166. There's a good chance if you are a therapist or an allied professional in the healthcare world, you have always been cautioned not to talk about yourself, not to tell your personal story very much, if at all. Well, we might be breaking a few tired old rules around here today, my friends, when my guest, Marina Gee, and I dive into this question. What if your own personal story could be your best, truest, and most effective marketing ever? Yeah, that's what we're talking about today. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ideal Practice Podcast. This is Wendy Pitts-Reeves, your host. And as always, you know I'm happy to be hanging out with you today. I've got a really great conversation with you to bring with you today. And yeah, we talk about various aspects of marketing all the time, right? I've had several ideal guests on here. Honestly, they're just lovely people. I hope you've heard some of those in the past. Michelle Knox, Barbara Gavednik, there have been others along the way. We've got some really good ones. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're talking about something different. In my professional world, we are taught not to talk about ourselves with our clients. And honestly, there's plenty of good reason for that. There's lots of reasons to be careful about that. But what if sharing our story in some way, in a professional, appropriate, ethical way, could actually help our clients? That's what authentic marketing can do. And that's what we're going to talk about today. In fact, this concept of using story turned out to have lots of aspects to it that I hadn't even thought of. And I think you're going to love this. So Marina Gee is a dynamic marketing strategist. She's an entrepreneur. She's a creative visionary who is dedicated to empowering brands through storytelling and purposeful strategy. As the founder of MG Media Creative, she blends innovation with intuition. I love that. Innovation with intuition to elevate health, wellness, and private practice businesses. We are her people, y'all. Now, Marina's voice has been featured on podcasts like The Soul of Business and Pastor Plus, and in publications like The Bold Journey Magazine and Canvas Rebel. She is bilingual in Spanish and English. She is passionate about authentic connection, global impact, and building heart-led businesses. Her mission is simple: help others show up, stand out, and succeed with clarity and confidence. And what you will hear her say is that when you do that, you reach more people, you serve more people, you help more people. And that is what we're all about, right? Yeah, this is going to be a good one. I think there are lots of practical takeaways, and she has a giveaway for you that is going to help solidify what you learned today. So be sure and listen all the way to the end so you don't miss that. Okay? All right. Without further ado, let's get in to the interview. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Ideal Practice Podcast. This is Wendy. You know that already, and you have already heard a little bit about my guest. So let me just cut to the chase and bring her on board. Marina, say hi.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Wendy.
You're very welcome. So you and I have been talking about this, guys. It has taken us 2 months to make this interview work. We have had so many scheduling snafus. It's gotten kind of funny, but by golly, we are both here and ready to talk to you. We made it. And I think people are going to find out that this was worth waiting for. So
awesome.
Yeah. So I love to start by asking everybody, my favorite question in the world, which is, where are you in the world? And I'm asking this to someone who has a giant map of the world behind her, which I love. Where are you in the world? Who do you serve, and how do you serve them?
Awesome. If you're looking at my map, somewhere over here.
Yeah, for
I'm
real.
right outside. I'm in the suburbs of San Francisco. So Bay Area, um, office in Walnut Creek, house up over, different, have lived all around, but have really built our professional network for my agency and for my team here. And then have expanded that even past the Bay Area in the last, I would say, 2, 3 years. So
Okay.
we are a digital marketing agency, but we work specifically with people who have private practices, coaches, therapists, chiropractors, people that work one-on-one with individuals to make them better.
Yeah, that's so you're a digital marketing is your focus and you work with
Yes,
people across the US, right? I think
that is
across the
correct.
yeah. I'm interested in the fact that, and I asked you this when we met before, that like you really are focusing on healthcare in particular. Tell me a little bit about like why, what made you decide,
Yeah.
and is it mental health? It's not just mental health, but it is close to that, right? Talk about that.
Yeah, it started with we did digital marketing for anyone and everyone, and then realized that there was such a greater level of fulfillment when we felt we were pushing something that made people's lives better.
Mm,
I loved working with people that own private practices, whether it's a solo practice as a solo therapist or a solo coach, to people who have 100 other doctors within their practice, because there's just something about the mentality of building a business and understanding how business works, but doing it in a way that serves people as best as possible. And so that was a pivot we made a few years back to really focus on these private practice owners, mental health care, physical health care, anything that, again, just touches people's lives.
was there something in particular? Was there a moment when you were like, I want to do this, or was there something that caught your eye or like got your attention in a new way when you made
What
that
it
pivot?
was it was time to grow, just like
Yeah.
any business scaling, right? And I was sitting there thinking, I want to do this strategically at this point. Like I want to pick who I'm working with rather than just growing through accident. And
Yes.
I wrote a list of all my favorite people to work with and all my favorite clients. And that's when I noticed the common thread.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that when I'm coaching practice owners and we start talking about an ideal client, who your ideal client is, I will often ask them to pick 3 to 5 of their very favorite people they've ever worked with and do a really, really, really detailed dive into all of the things they know about that person and see what jumps out of them. What are the themes? Because that will tell them
Mhm.
something. And you did exactly that. I love that. How
Mhm.
cool is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, even when it's disparate people sometimes, because we've done that with our clients as well. Like, who are we targeting, right? There's
Yeah.
usually a thread in the relationship or the values of the people that you like to serve the most. And
Yeah.
so that's what became very obvious to me is there's a common thread in the entrepreneurial spirit, but also the values to help people that therapists and mental health providers they have.
100%. They're good at the helping people part. They're not so good at the marketing part.
Yes.
And you're going to help us with that, which is
Yeah.
also kind of funny. It's funny, that whole thing, because you have identified that we are the people to work with. And we're like, we don't know how to do this and we don't want to do this.
Well, I think everyone thinks that, but I do feel that a lot of people have grown their practice to a certain space without realizing that they're marketing it and growing it, right? And so, yes,
Mm,
there's like that second step that might feel a little foreign, but you did have enough to get to here where you're thinking about growing, you
that's
know?
true. That's true. You're already doing it. You just don't know that you're doing it.
Right.
That's
You
great.
just tend
Yeah,
to do it intentionally.
absolutely. All right. So talk to us about authentic marketing and some ideas you have about that.
Yeah, I think I keep coming back to authentic marketing because AI changed a lot just this year. I think the biggest pivot of digital
Mm,
marketing was when it went from, being obviously billboards and print and magazines to, I'm sorry, marketing in general, from when it went from being out in the world to digital. That was the
yep.
first big transition, right?
Yeah.
I think the transition we've seen with the introduction of AI is, if not equal to that, the biggest change we've seen since. Um, the
True.
problem with the introduction of AI, while it has made many things easier and actually made a lot of marketing better in some ways, is that the core purpose of marketing is to build trust. And a lot of people don't trust what they
Yeah.
see and what they read and what they're hearing. And so it's a new way of approaching how you're going to not just build authority and get traffic, but to build trust with people in the online space when so little is trustworthy.
How do they know you're real
Right.
when nothing out there feels real right now?
Right.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, specifically in the therapist world, shy away from that because they feel like it's salesy or gimmicky. Like there's this reaction to the idea of marketing yourself that blocks a lot of people who have the potential to serve a lot more people.
100%. Yeah. I mean, all jokes aside, I don't think a lot of folks in my world understand what marketing is and what it isn't. What the difference is between effective and ineffective and between sleazy and honorable. So can you just maybe start by telling us what marketing actually means to you, like how you think of it, and what are some of the problems that you've identified because you're working with people like this? So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, 100%. So I think marketing is something that refers to a million different tactics and tools. But what marketing is anything you can possibly do that achieves three objectives, which is one, to either get people to know you who didn't know you, two, to get people to trust you who are just introduced to you, and then three, to get them to either book that consult, purchase that product, finally take that final action. So marketing is going door to door, and marketing is social media ads. And so it's the tool in itself doesn't matter. It's whatever it is you're doing to achieve those three objectives.
Yeah. And of those three objectives, so that getting them to know you is the beginning of the client journey, right? Just inviting them into your universe so they even know that you exist, first of all.
Right.
And then getting to trust you, which is a piece I think you're going to help us with. I do want to highlight the fact that last part, getting them to book the call, buy the product, join the course, that's the piece that we choke on a little bit. Because at some point you have to sort of cross that line into getting them to make a purchase or engage in some way. But those first two parts are the key to that, aren't they?
It is. Without the first two, you're screaming into a vacuum trying to get anything to happen. Yeah.
So what are some of the roadblocks or problems that you see? What stops therapists and allied professionals from doing this in the right way or a healthy way or a way that really makes sense and is in alignment for them? Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
What do you see? Yeah.
I honestly feel like it's overwhelm. I feel like most people in today's day and age, I mean, we're getting marketed to all the time. So we know the tools, we know the tactics, like most people have some understanding of marketing and what they should be doing. Where the gap often is that despite there being a million things you can do, there's usually only one or two things you should be doing that are going to move the needle the most in this exact moment for where you're at. And that's where a lot of people aren't able to figure out what that is. So it feels like a huge undertaking.
Okay. That's a good point. There's 1,000 things I could do. How do I know which one I should do?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious what makes people reach out to you.
Usually they come attempting to do what I just said. So they know they need growth. They know they need something. So they usually call and they say, I need social media. Can you do our social media? And what I do in that moment is say, well, let's take a step back. What do you want the social media to do for you? Because usually it's not even the first step we would be taking to achieve the actual big picture they want to be seeing. Okay. So usually I'm people's first attempt at like, okay, this is it. We're going to go in this direction. And what I help them do is make sure that really is the right direction. Yeah, I can see that totally.
I hear a lot of, I hate social media. I hate social media. I know I should be out there, but I hate it so much. Maybe I can just pay somebody to do that for me and I won't have to worry about it anymore. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's us.
Got it.
That's where we start.
Except that it's not just, can you just go do this for me? Like there's more to it than that. So I asked, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and it's usually, people think they're going to attract clients through social, and it's really not. It's more of that second piece of the funnel that I was telling you about, that trust building section. So you have to make sure you even have enough people able to find you that are even going to make it to your social to make it worth investing your time, money, and energy into it. So it's just steps that we go through. Yeah.
So marketing is a big topic, and learning how to attract the right folks into your world there's so many aspects to that are way more than we're going to go into today. But when you and I first met, you were telling me that one of the ways that you encourage people to build trust is through the use of video. And so we were talking about how it's much easier for people to connect with you when they can see you and hear your voice and sense your energy. And we could certainly talk about video, but I've done that here a little bit. And so I asked you if you could talk a little bit more about our personal story. So let's get into that, because you were kind to go, yeah, sure, let's do that, because that's something that's so loaded for us. Can you walk us into that a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's actually extremely relevant to what we were just saying, in that now even video, you can't trust it. Like, you can make an AI avatar to speak for you.
Jeez.
So it's just level after level, right? And these things are changing so fast. But what hasn't changed since literally caveman times is the importance of story in our communities, and in building trust, and in connecting with people. And so what I encourage people to do is find a way to weave storytelling into everything you do, as a way of bringing people in, because, your name and your credentials and how nice you can film a video can only get you so far. But the person you are and the core values that you carry with you through the stories that you tell are what's going to get people to feel like, oh, this is the person to work with me.
Yeah. Yeah. In our work, we are inviting people to tell us their story all the time.
Right.
Right. So what are some of the ways that we can use, and I love the concept, and I think it's something that we could probably understand better. Like, this is a really good point. This makes me think about one of the mistakes that I see people do is they'll create a website or a psych profile or whatever, when all they're doing is throwing their credentials at people. An alphabet soup of all the different methodologies they use and blah, 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 none of which matters a hill of beans to anybody.
Right.
So can you tell us, like, what is story-based marketing? And give us some examples of how, like, just teach us, yeah, Marina.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah.
No, and I like what you said, because I think people ask the question a lot of, there's a million people in the world with my credentials who do what I do. What makes me unique? That's what a lot of marketing, the main question, right? What's your unique value proposition? What are we putting out there? And no one in the world has your story. It is literally only you. So I want to get people, one, just reframing and thinking of their story as their unique value proposition and what makes them and worth working with, right? And so we take a look when kind of working through this with clients, right? The first is the mindset shift of, we're not trauma dumping. We're not selling ourselves. We are putting out who we are so that we can attract the people that we want to be attracting. So first we work on that, right? And then we get into the nitty gritty of, okay, what does that mean? What stories do I have? How do I tell them?
Right.
So looking at what stories do you have, because everyone does have them, whether you think you do or you don't want to talk about certain ones. So if I can't talk about that, I don't have a good story, right? There's a whole mixed bag that goes in with that.
Yeah.
We break it down into 3 story categories. And that usually helps people start to map out, this vast thing that is their life and put it into something that feels structured. The first is your origin story. So there is always a reason why you're doing what you're doing. Like you just asked me at the beginning of the call, why this? Why now? What was that moment? Everyone has that moment.
Yeah.
Especially when therapy, from my clients, I see a lot of them had their own therapy moment where they had to go and they needed help with something in their lives and realized what a transformative process it was for them. And they wanted to do that for other people. So that's a huge piece of your story. And some people hesitate on that because there might be some personal issues or things in there they don't want to put that out for. And that's fine. We can still get to the why you do what you do without, again, bringing out like your deepest, darkest moment.
Right. Yeah.
So origin story doesn't have to be your origin. It just has to be, why are you in this moment right now?
What made you decide to do this for a living? What made you decide to do this hard work where you're showing up for people in this deeply connected and personal way? What drove you to do this work?
Exactly.
And what I hear you saying is you may very well have a personal story that does this, where you yourself have had some kind of a personal experience that led you into therapy yourself, or something that has, and it doesn't have to be therapy. I mean, it could be like, you had a bad back and massage helped you, so you became a massage therapist, whatever.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be deeply like the kind of thing that's hard to share publicly. And I also love that you said this is not trauma dumping. We are not talking about in the addiction world, war storying, like getting out
Right.
there and tell, right? That's not that, but you're saying there's something about your history, your story, something that led you to this work that could be worth it to tell.
Hmm.
And as you're going, I'm thinking, absolutely. If I think about my own story about how I got into this work,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I have never, ever told that story in a marketing or public way. I've told to lots of
Yeah.
people individually. That's a great point. That's a great point.
And I think it evolves too. So it doesn't always have to be this big moment. Like I said, there's tons of little moments as to why you do this. And I
Yeah.
think you also need to, so I work with dermatologists as well, right? And I remember I was asking a bunch of them for their content, why dermatology? The honest answer for some of them was I didn't like anything else in medical school. And that's what I landed on. And I'm
Huh.
like, okay, so process of elimination. That's
We're
great.
not going to use that.
But when I dug deeper, I was like, okay, but clearly there was a reason this was the one for you versus everything else. Like, what was that? And there are real reasons. There always is. We're humans. So
Hmm.
um, I often, yeah. So I tell people you don't need this huge trauma, big dramatic story either. It can
Yeah.
be these micro moments that shaped this decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking the dermatology example makes me think they picked that specialty because it pays really well.
Which
It
is
could be
fine.
that. Yeah, it could be. That's fine.
But you know what else pays really well? Being a lawyer. So why didn't you go do that? There's a
Absolutely.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have an example of somebody that's used that really well?
Yeah, I had someone, let's see, I did write it down in some notes here. Yeah, I was recently two therapists I was talking to. One really focuses on postpartum depression mothers because of her journey with postpartum depression and just the
Hmm.
vast amount of things she wished she had known and someone had told her.
Yeah.
So that became her life's work, and she's phenomenal at it. The second one was related to chronic illness and how, when diagnosed with a chronic illness, there was very specific things that her therapist was able to provide to her during that time, and then other things that she was getting from other places. And so she knew that when you're going through this, you need someone who has also gone through it in a way, not for everything, but there is pieces of it that you can just only know through the lived experience.
Hmm.
And so that's when she was already doing, some kind of coaching and things like that, but that's when she chose to focus in that direction.
And in those two cases, had they been using their personal experience before they met you? Or was that something like that was kind of a new
No,
thing?
one of them was
Yeah.
just a general therapist.
Yeah.
And then the other hadn't even thought about therapy at all and went the therapy direction because of the experience.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the second kind of story you have in mind?
The second kind of story is the mirror story. So this goes into your origin story, right? The goals of all of them are the same, which is show people you understand them. But the mirror story is day to day things in your life that show to someone you understand the struggles they're going with. So this goes back great to our chronic illness example.
Hmm.
And she would share stories about things that were just really like minute things to do in her day, but that she found really difficult and why she found them difficult and what she did to navigate them. These are the stories that pop out like alerts, like beacons to people because they're like, oh gosh, that's
Uh,
me. That was me on Tuesday.
uh,
So
okay.
even if your origin story is very unique or different, or maybe, you don't feel like that's your biggest point, I tell people to really look at all these micro moments that reflect experiences that only you have or that are calling out to you, because if they call out to you, they call out to someone else.
Micro moments. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. That's really great.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking, in terms of like using your experience, one of the challenge, I've worked with all kinds of different things in my career, like different situations and issues and folks. And one of the things I have run into as a therapist is I would say, I don't have to be an addict to be able to help an addict, right?
Right.
I don't have to be an abuse survivor to help an abuse survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to, if you are skilled at what you do, that doesn't mean you have to have the same whatever issue it is. And
100%.
even if you do, it doesn't mean you have to share it. But there are times when sharing it could actually be really helpful. That's part of this, I think. True?
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of experiences we don't realize we share.
Yeah.
So just because circumstances of the situation might be different. The feeling that you had because of it, or the obstacle it's presenting to you,
Yeah.
can be similar, right? So maybe someone has like a PTSD against something, maybe someone has a chronic illness. Either way, it's making something really easy to do difficult. And so I think it doesn't have to be the exact same situation, but that doesn't mean you aren't able to connect with that person.
Absolutely. The point is the same.
Exactly.
Right. You can still relate in some way.
Exactly.
And the micro moments idea, I love, like, there's so many different ways I can see you using that. Is sort of, it's learning to, tell me if I'm right about this. The way I hear this is, I imagine it as paying attention to little things that happen each day that you yourself are doing or experiencing or seeing or thinking that, like, oh, I could use this to teach a client something. I could use this, right? Or something that's happening in a session or in your work with somebody. Like,
Yes.
yeah, true. Okay.
Yes. I love that. Paying attention is the first step.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I lead a support group, this support discussion group for women leaders at midlife, called Accomplished. And a couple of months ago, we started the group with a plan about what we were going to do that day. And just based on what I was hearing from them, completely threw that out the door. And we just dealt with what was on the table that day. And the issue that came up in that moment was that one of them had just left a position, a really draining job, a good job, but one that had been really hard. And she got out of that and had not realized how exhausted she was. And so was in the middle of this sort of transition period of trying to figure out, like, who am I now and what do I want to do now? And was talking about how that she had never been one to take naps in her whole life, but suddenly she was taking naps. And I took that, and where we went with that was talking about the concept of being bone weary. When it's just like, it is so deep that it's a kind of weariness that you don't even realize you're carrying. And I found myself thinking about that the rest of the day. And then I went for a walk with my dog that evening at sunset, and I kept thinking about it. And I thought about times when I have felt that way and times with friends and I have felt that way. And I ended up posting something on Facebook about it later that day, or maybe it was the next day. And the response I got was tremendous because so many people could relate to that, right?
Yeah.
That's a micro moment, I think.
Everyone in the world seems like can relate to
Yeah,
that.
we're all there. It's a very, very universal concept there, but it was a matter of paying attention to what was showing up in front of me and then sort of extrapolating it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why once we start this process with clients, they realize they have a lot more stories than they think. You just weren't viewing them as a shareable story before.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So a mirror story is how my life mirrors yours, how something I'm experiencing could mirror what you're going through.
Exactly. I can see myself in you.
I can see myself in you. Y'all, I want to capture this real quick, because in your marketing, what so many of you do on your website copy or your social media profiles, you really do tend to just sort of throw stuff out there that is much more academic and much more from your head as opposed to from your heart. And what Marina is talking about here is like what will make a client. I've talked about this before, but I want to highlight it for a second. When you get a new client, and Marina, forgive me for stepping in for a second, but please. One of the best questions you can ask every single new client is, first of all, how did you find me? And second of all, why did you choose me? Right? Why? Because if they've looked at 100 names online and you're the one they phoned or filled out the form or sent you an email, why? And you will often be shocked at why people pick you. It is way more random than you think. And this whole, you get me, you see me, I'm like you, is part of it. And one of the therapists that was in my group practice that I used to run, she used to have a picture of her dog in her online picture, her and her dog. I can't tell you how many clients she got because she had a dog. And they would say, well, I saw the picture of your dog and I really like that. And I like dogs. So I thought I probably like you. That's a heck of a way to pick a therapist, but okay.
But that's usually the level it's at.
It totally is. It totally is. Yeah. Which is what this mirror idea is. I see you do something. I'm like, oh, you get me, because that I have that too. Okay. I love that. Yes. Thank you, Marie. So what's the third one?
So the third is a little bit specific to you as a therapist, as someone who can help people, right? So now we're moving into, how do you live all of the habits and the tactics and the things that you teach in your practice, and what effect does that have for you? So now we're getting into not just who you are, but how do you work a little bit? What do you focus on? How do you help people? What are you doing in your own life that is infecting you? How are you impacting your clients with these tactics? So I do think this is sometimes case studies, obviously anonymously and obviously with consent, do fit into this category as well. But the purpose of this category is to show your work in action, whether that's through your story or your clients.
What do you call this category?
I call this the values in action story.
Values in action. Showing your impact, showing the value of your work. That's what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. The way you approach your work, the way you live your work. Here is the action piece. So now it's not just, oh, I see myself in you and in your perception of the world and in your obstacles you're facing, but now I am intrigued in the way that you take action and the way you work and what we can do together.
Okay. Okay. So I'm hearing you say this in two different ways. So this is what I do. This is how I help. And here's what a difference it makes. It's the difference you make in the world, right?
Yes.
And you're saying one way to tell that story is how you practice what you preach, how you walk your own talk.
Yes.
Right. And I can certainly relate to that when I think about these women, because a lot of what I teach them is what I have been through. For that matter, as a private practice coach, I do the same thing, right? So I've learned this. I do it this way now because I used to do it that way. And what I teach helps because it's helping me. Now it's going to help.
Right.
Or also, I work with so-and-so, or here's what I see happen with my people, or here's what happened in my office this week. And that's how this makes a difference. So you are demonstrating the impact of what you do, whether it's through your own life or your clients. Got it.
Yes. And you see this all the time, right? In our own marketing, the difference between someone saying you should use vitamin C in your skincare because it'll do this, this, and this versus I started using vitamin C in my skincare and this is the difference it made for me. Way more people are going to listen to the latter.
Yeah.
So that's what you're trying to do rather than get on and just teach or give tips, although there's space for that, frame it into a story that people can relate to.
That builds credibility, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It sort of answers the question, why should I listen to you?
Yes, 100%. We're always trying to answer that question because there's so much noise in the world.
So freaking much noise. Mm-hmm. Why should I listen to you? I want to dig a little bit more into this before we get into like how the action steps and where to go with this. Yeah. The idea of using your own life or using your own story as part of your marketing is so, I suspect it is really foreign to people. Mm-hmm. And I love what you're saying, that you've got a story that you can use. You just don't know it. You're not used to thinking this way. Mm-hmm. Could you give me maybe a handful of examples of what, like, things that your clients have kind of gone, oh, never occurred to me I could use that. Never thought about talking about that. Can you give us, like, fill this out for me?
And the funny thing is when I tell the stories, they seem obvious to us, but to the person at the time, it wasn't.
And so, always.
It's when I say it, it seems, well, no, duh. But, I had to go back to dermatology. I had a esthetician that was just teaching about what to do and skincare and what you do for acne and things like that. And I was asking her, did you ever have acne? Did you ever have these problems? And she said, oh yeah, I did. I said, well, why don't you talk about that? Like, let's share these in story form rather than just educational form. So that was one. The other was going back to the chronic illness therapist. She was actually threw that in. I didn't even know that was true until at the very end, she kind of threw it in as an aside. And I was like, wait, let's go back to that. What do you mean?
Yeah.
And with her, it was a case of not feeling totally comfortable talking about it. And I never push anyone to do something they're not comfortable with. But when she realized how much, imagine you at the beginning of your journey had heard someone saying what you could say now. Imagine you were, just getting diagnosed and you're on the internet living your life and you hear this story. What impact would that have had on you back then?
Yeah.
And that made her really reshift the whole thing. At first, she felt like she was kind of trying to get pity votes and trying to, and then she realized, oh no, this is actually impactful, what I have to share. So two different reasons.
Yeah.
Same situation.
So one of the ways of looking at that is I used to have a coach that would say that we are often the after of our clients before,
Yeah, that's
right?
great.
We
Mm-hmm.
are the after of our clients before, and often our ideal clients are really us,
Uh-huh.
right? Almost
Yeah.
all, like, and who we used to be, or who we struggled, or whatever. And it's very funny how often that comes out when I work with folks, and sometimes it takes a while to figure this stuff out and hone it,
Yeah.
but it often that is the case. Oh, the people I love working with, I used to be. Now, not like when I'm working with my addiction folks. No, that's never been a part of my life.
Right.
I just enjoyed the work. But for these women leaders, it's 100% that way. 100%.
Right.
They are exactly who I was 10 years ago, and I'm watching them. And one of my favorite, I have lots of favorite clients, but one of my favorite clients that I did some really, really good work with, a therapist out of North Carolina that I worked with for a couple of years. We spent probably 18 months changing and revising and coming back to who she really wanted to serve.
Nice.
And ultimately, after lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of reflection and trying things, and she thought she had it, and then it wasn't quite right, and then she thought she had it. And what it ultimately got down to, and I'm going somewhere with this, is she wanted to work with people who did not feel like they belonged in some way.
Mm. Okay.
And in the
Yeah.
beginning, she was talking about like LGBTQ or, you're a liberal in a conservative state or a conservative and a liberal, whatever, those kinds of things. But where it eventually landed when she really nailed it was she wanted to serve people who were not first or second generation Americans. Their parents had come here from somewhere else. And so they were, and y'all, those of you who are listening, you've heard me tell the story before, but it's such a good one for this concept.
Yeah.
I come back to it a lot. She narrowed and narrowed and narrowed and fine tuned and fine tuned. And ultimately, it was like people who don't feel like they belong here because they have a foot in two cultures,
Was
right?
she an example of that?
She was a Japanese American,
Yeah.
like second or third generation, but her
Yeah.
grandparents had been caught up in the internment camps and all of that. So there was all kinds of like family dynamics and beliefs that she had to work through personally for herself.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as she did that, it began to spill over into her work. And it was like, oh, that's why I love these people.
Yeah.
And her marketing just got tighter and tighter and better as she figured that out. But she figured it out for herself first and then
Well,
took
and
it
I
to her
think
practice.
story can help you figure that out.
Yeah.
'Cause, a lot of people think they have to have it all figured out to start this. And I'm like, no, you'll start it will reveal threads to you that you didn't know.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah.
It's cool. Good for her. I'm glad. That's a good story.
It was really cool to watch happen.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from going through that with her.
Yeah.
What are some other stories that people have ended up using that they didn't even realize they had?
People have used, what was one?
Putting her on the spot, y'all.
This is this is one that I like that is not my client's story. Mel Robbins, very well known.
Yeah.
Her whole book that she made off the 5 4 3 2 1 jump out of bed.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
so many people would have thought that was just such a weird thing I did and moved on with their life. And I don't even know how many millions she made off of that, but that just really set her whole career in motion. And it was all because she looked at that moment as something worth sharing.
She is a great example
Mm-hmm.
because almost every book she's got is like that.
Is like that. Her,
Yeah.
what is it now? The Let Them?
Let them.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which came out of a conversation she had with a daughter about a prom dress, something like
Yeah.
that. High-fiving yourself in the mirror, the high five
Yeah.
habit, something like that, was when she was going through a really rough period when the pandemic hit and she was like super depressed, and she just basically gave herself a high five in the mirror and it shifted her energy.
Yeah.
She's a great example of take the smallest micro moment and don't just use it in your marketing, write a book about it.
Right. Well, and what I like about her, because in my opinion, I think the coaching market has gotten very saturated, especially since the pandemic.
Yep.
And there's a lot of coaches that I hear, and I want to help them, where they're telling the same story.
Mm.
Even some of the big ones, like you've heard their story before, and obviously it's a great story, so that's good to keep telling. But it starts to, you can feel energy in stories, and you can feel when it feels old. There's just something, I don't know how we know it, but
Yeah.
we just can feel a stale story. So I think she does a really good job at not needing like catastrophic life events to happen, to just hold on to these news stories and keep introducing an evolution of things.
That's great. That's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great for that. She's
She-
awesome.
Such a great example. Well, that ought to get you all thinking. That ought to get you thinking. Okay. And you just brought up another point though. Do people have kind of like a trademark story, like their signature story that they lean on? And is it okay to have that? Do you need to have different ones that you use at different times? What's the flow around that?
Yeah, we always have an anchor few
Hmm.
stories, right? So things we keep going back to. I do find that people evolve though too. So
Yeah.
we have wanted something that felt like it was resonating really well for a while, changes. But we do build that when we build our story bank and things like that. Like we have our core ones and then build around it. And sometimes it's worth coming back to the core ones and shifting them around. And other times those can last you as long as you need them to. So I
Okay.
would say have multiple though. I don't think one is enough to
Okay. You just talk
encapsulate who you are.
who you are, right? This
Yeah.
is not a one thing catches, one thing fits all. So you
Right.
just mentioned a story bank.
Yes. Yes.
What is that? And how do you use it?
So we start with the story bank when we're moving in this direction with clients, because again, a lot of it is just getting used to knowing you have stories and seeing things as stories. So we'll actually work for a month just collecting moments, right? And some of them you might not end up using. Some of them you might realize this wasn't really worth sharing, and that's fine. But the point is to just be aware of them throughout your day-to-day life so you can start to capture the ones that you do want to use. So the first step is to create a story bank where I like handwritten personally, but it can be in your computer, anything. You write down all the moments at the end of the day while they happen, somewhere where it can be with you. That's why I do I'll have notes in my phone and then move them to paper later.
Hmm.
Because I'll be at the grocery store and think of something and write it down.
Yeah.
And then from there, once we have a list, is where we start to those anchor stories that I was talking about, start to highlight the ones that feel big, feel like, wow, this is really resonating with me and who I am, and start to create tiers around the different, what are going to be your anchor stories, what are your mirror stories, and start to categorize them into these buckets that we walked through.
Okay. When you said something about tears, I thought you meant the stories that bring tears.
Those two, those are usually effective.
So you said that you will encourage people like for a full month to develop the habit of capturing the stories that you see, hear, that pop into your head, whatever. And then because you really are building up sort of a number
It's
to
the
work
habit.
with.
I like how you said that. It's building the habit.
Well, I do think it's that. I had I published a blog weekly for 7 freaking years. And and I got to be there was a say I would say all the time, there's a blog post in that, there's a blog post in that, there's a blog post in that. And it became like shorthand for micro moments that I could turn into a teaching opportunity in one way or another. And that's what you're basically doing, is saying capture those moments. I bet you could, so notes on your phone would be one way to do it, carrying a little notebook in your purse, or that could do it. A voice recording, if that works better for you.
For me, I find a lot of ideas for some reason while I'm driving. So I have Siri write the notes for me.
That makes perfect sense because your attention is softer during that point, right? The conscious mind is taking a little bit of a break, and that is when creativity bubbles up. So that makes perfect sense.
And you're kind of alone too. So yeah, it's a good space. That in the
Love
shower.
it. That in the shower, same idea. So story bank, create a bunch of stuff, then go through them once you've got a few and start to categorize them and look for the threads and look for the ones that kind of rise to the top as the biggies that are more critical. Okay. And start putting them into these types that you were talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was the key part, exactly like you said. Let's start to notice what is the core piece of each of them so we can see what themes are popping up multiple times. And then from there, we start to take a look at how we're going to share them, right? And there's many different formats. There's written format, you have a blog, things like that. There is video format. There's also getting in-person speaking presentations ready and being able to leverage those. Those need to have a lot of really good stories in them. So there's lots of different ways they can be repurposed and used. But I do think at the end of the day, you have to be good at telling the story, no matter what format you're telling it in.
Mm.
So that's the next thing we work on, is just on the camera where no one's watching, where we're going to delete it later, just tell the story. Because half the battle is just getting comfortable speaking some of these things out loud and in a way that makes sense.
So you encourage people as an exercise to sit down and talk to a camera and tell the story out loud. Not for anybody's consumption, but your own. But get
some
used
people
to.
I'll even do talk to your dog first, because the camera makes it worse. So there's even a level pre-camera.
I love that.
Yeah. So just getting comfortable, feeling the pieces of it. Storytelling is an art. It's one I'm actually not very good at. I just have seen the value of it. So I love to study it. I'm such a bulleted list thinker and that's not the way stories are told.
You are. And honestly, I love that about you. You're one of the more organized guests I've had. Yeah, I do actually love that. And I relate to that too. I think in bullet points too. So I totally get that. I will say, when I have been trying to sort of work through what I want to say, the remarks I want to give, or a talk I want to give, or whatever, when you just said being in the car, I sometimes would imagine that somebody was sitting next to me in the passenger seat, and I'm talking out loud to them, right? And on some of my best talks have happened on a long drive when I was going to be driving for like 5 or 6 hours, and I just keep telling the story, telling it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, I've got to talk. Yeah. So that's
the only key is that it's out loud.
Yes,
you can't practice
absolutely.
it in your head. Yeah.
Use your voice. Yeah. Why is that? Why do you think that's important?
I to be honest, I actually don't know.
You just know that it is?
I just know that it is. It's the same thing. I do a lot of dance as well. And you can replay the steps in your head over and over, and it's not using your body. It's not the same thing. It's better than doing nothing. Since it's, so it's still practice, but the end result is different. You got to do it out loud in the space.
100%. I think that's golden. And I think it makes a difference, because you need to hear these words coming from your own mouth. When your brain hears that out loud, it makes them more real. It's also why talking to a therapist is so powerful, because you're saying it out loud to another human being.
Yeah.
Right? It's why the fifth step in the 12 steps world, which is about sharing your story with another human being, is so powerful. We can play all kinds of games in our own head, but when you say it out loud, it makes it stronger and more real. When I have people writing copy, I will always tell them to read it out loud. Read the social media post out loud before when you're writing a letter to somebody, read it out loud, because you will hear it differently. But your dance example adds a whole other layer to that. You are embodying the message, which is even better.
Well, I think I think the way we affect our environments just as people is through your brain and then through your body. And it has to have the connection of the two of them working together. So I think you can exercise your brain, but until you get the body behind it, it can't go anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So say it out loud. Say it loud, say it proud. I love it. I love it. Okay. So how to share this? So get the stories figured out, and then how to share it. I think people need to find the format that works best for them. It's usually, there's many and not that many at the same time. There's the written word, there's speaking in person to audiences, and then there's recording for content. Within content, you have things that are really short and, social media, bite-sized pieces. And then you can also have longer format, YouTube and things like that. And what I love is that usually a story can be repurposed across all of these, which is generally what I push people towards. So now that we have the story, let's write it, let's speak it, let's cut it down, let's put just the hook in it, let's put just the lesson in it, and use it as many places as possible. So you can come up with one story and use it over and over and over, or actually get lots of different things out of it. That's really that's
Work
great.
Smarter, not harder.
Yeah. I was trying to think. It's like, so once you've done this, like, how do you use it? How How do
yeah,
you
what it does.
fold this into your marketing in a seamless, not so obvious way?
Yeah. So you have your website, right? So
Yeah.
people need to go to your website and be convinced to work with you from there. So for 100%, your website needs to include you, and it needs to include it on the homepage and in a
Yeah.
very clickable place. Even for myself, I have one video on my website that just talks through my philosophy of marketing and how I approach it. And I can't even tell you how many sales calls people reference something I said in that video, meaning
Yep.
they watched it and it was part of their decision to even come speak with me.
Ditto for the
Yeah.
counseling side. Same thing.
Really? Yeah.
Yep. All the time.
So that prominent there doesn't have to be the hero section, but I would say before even like the third section down, you should have a video there.
Okay.
Then usually from there, people bounce around, right? So they explore in your website a little bit more. And from there, I do encourage people to have like more built out story sections, right? So that's where they can have blogs, which is their regular, musings, but that in those blogs, make sure we're sharing these stories as a part of the lesson or whatever it is you're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have a video library on their website that they've done too, which is great. When I create lead magnets, which is, something you share with people to get their contact back.
Yeah.
I always do it in as many formats as possible because some people like to consume, keep listening to it. Some people like to read it. So having all of those options accessible on your website is helpful. You make sure you're not missing anybody.
Now that's new. I've not heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a million of those. I call them a VFO, a valuable free offer, but it's the same idea. It's a lead magnet. And most of mine are digital printables of some sort, right? Worksheets, things like that. But to put that in multiple formats, video, audio, or tangibles. Yeah, that's great. That's a really good tip.
Yeah, everyone learns different. So
Yeah, you're right.
to get them in different ways. And then from there, you move off your hub of your website, right? So where else in the world, in the internet world, do you exist? Which is your social channels, which is any features that you do, podcasts, conferences you attend, everything outside of your realm. And making sure that content can get on all of those places as well.
So I'm picturing this like an expanding circle.
Yep.
All right. So your website is your home base always. And your website is important. Like people get their first sense of who you are from your website. And there's a lot of terrible ones out there.
It's true. I think it depends. It's weird. Like it is important and it's not at the same time. Like
talk about that.
Yeah. So there's many services and people that I've worked with where I realized I never even went to their website until after I started working with them. And it does depend on the industry. So this isn't a recommendation necessarily, but there are many cases where what you have on your social profile and that podcast feature you did with that person the other day, that's enough, right? And so people will reach out from there. Only in the sense that you should obviously have a great website, but some people just way overinvest in it. And it's not, it's not going to break your entire marketing strategy. So just find that balance.
I think the issue there, where I want to go with that, is that it's not about how pretty it is. It's not about how many bells and whistles it is. It's about what the copy is. It's what the message is. Right. And message matters more than anything else. And what you're saying is that sometimes the message will connect with them somewhere else. They find you through some other format. But if the message is solid, the story is real, and they connect with that story, that will pull them back to you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that makes me think about, like, when you just said people are different kinds of learners, there are also people who take action in different ways. So you will have the personality types who are high info people who want to dig into every detail. They're going to read every word on your page and they're going to take 6 months before they decide to call you. And then there'll be other people who are like, oh, she's fine. I'll do this one,
Right. She has a dog.
Who act much. She's got a dog, right? How people make decisions. But that's also why a multi-pronged approach is important.
Yes.
But all of it comes back to the story. This is the key that I want to highlight. How you get it out there is going to vary from one place to the next, how you share the message. But what the message is matters, honestly, I think, more than any of it.
I think people make decisions based off of what they feel, not what they know. So,
Amen.
yeah. So your site has to do enough to make them feel like you're trustworthy and still connectable. Your social media has enough to make them feel like they relate to you, right? So what are we making people feel in each piece of our marketing?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had people tell me that they followed me for 2 years before they ever reached out the first time. And then I've had other people, which was very humbling, like, "Ooh, I'm glad it was good," whatever. And then I've had people that watch the video on my homepage. I don't have one on my coaching page. I should. But on my counseling site, which is actually ugly as sin. Honestly, it's a terrible site. I need to redo it. But the video alone nails it. And I have had people walk in the door and say, "I watched that video and I thought, oh my gosh, has she been in my house? Has she been in my brain? How did you know?"
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
It doesn't take much, but it does need to be real. So,
yes. If you if you come at it from the intention of trying to make that happen, it's not going to work. So
yeah,
just focus on you and your story and you'll get there.
that's so good. That's very good advice.
Yeah.
That's very good advice. So, story bank, sort them out, and then figure out ways to share them. And then you just walked us through sort of this expanding circle from your website, and then taking that content in various ways on your website and then out into the world, right?
Yes.
Is there anything else I'm missing about that in terms of where to go with this?
Then it's always it's a rinse and repeat. So you learn something with everything you put up. So not being afraid to change it. I caution people with this because a lot of people they doubt a lot and they have fear about it. So the second they put it out, they're like, "I don't like how this feels. I want to take it down."
Yeah.
So we do have a grace period where you're not really allowed to touch anything for we'll say 30, 60 days, something in there.
Love it.
But then you want to go through and see, what was it that was calling out to people? What did I feel the most proud of sharing, and allow that to inform your path moving forward. It's not a set it and forget it type of work.
I wrote down no panic takedowns.
Yeah.
That's what I just wrote down.
Put it up and then put your phone away.
Sit with it for a while. Tolerate the discomfort. I interviewed somebody once a while I've forgotten when, it's been a while back, who said that when you tell a story of your own, that the key is that you are speaking from a scar and not a wound, which I thought was a beautiful way of saying it. And I think when you're trying to decide, so this is such a loaded issue for therapists, self-disclosure is discouraged in the moment with an actual client, much less in a public way, right? We are really, really encouraged not to do that. And so that scar wound metaphor was really good. I liked that. And I think the question I will often ask myself is, in sharing this story, am I doing this because this is good for them? They need to hear this. Or am I sharing this story because I just want to say it?
Right.
Right.
And that's why I think building processes around storytelling helps mitigate some of that, because you're building the bank and then later you're coming back and then you're resharing it. And so it avoids things that you hopefully haven't processed or in the moment, just trying to get off your chest. You want to avoid anything like that. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, it prevents you from doing an impulse share, right? But you're also talking about something else here. You're talking about using your story to explain to people who you are and how you can connect with them. But you're also talking about using stories ongoing as part of your ongoing connection to the world and your ongoing sharing of your work. There's sort of two different things. Yeah.
Yes, it's both. Yeah. And that's why we segment it into, we have those anchor ones that we keep coming back to, but then we have the micro moments throughout your day because the world changes too. And so things that are happening in it evolve. So you want to have your storytelling evolve with it.
And hopefully you're evolving. Right. Hopefully you're growing and changing and you might have some new things to share. I think this is really great. I love this. So what are some of the mistakes that you see people make? What are some of the more common, oops?
Yes. Yeah. So one is believing you have to have a huge story, right? That we've, I think, touched on a few times, right? Okay. That you do have stories. They're little micro moments. You don't have to get paralyzed in needing something huge. Okay. The second is inconsistency, which is really the biggest mistake I see in most marketing across the board. Which is that it's slow and it's steady. None of these are quick wins. I don't teach any marketing quick wins because I don't believe they work. So this is going to be something that you just, decide to spend a year doing it, and then see where you want to go from there, and really commit to 6 months, a year, something where you can get in the habit and be consistent. Because
Yeah.
nothing works inconsistently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the other is a little bit of what you just said, where people will tend to make stories about them. You don't want to, we're not trying to be narcissists. So we
Right.
want to be sharing about us, but only because it allows us to connect with people,
Yeah.
not because it makes us feel great or we need the validation or anything like that. So I don't see that too much, to be honest. I see most of my clients are very hesitant to share.
Yeah. It's more the other
Want to
way around.
share.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's not a very big one, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And then just like you said, making sure we're really processing the experience before we're sharing it, and making sure it's wrapped into value. Again, it will be trauma dumping if you're not wrapping it in to some kind of value that you can provide or way of connecting with people.
That's a great way of putting that. Yeah. Process it before you share. I think the risk of an overshare or an inappropriate share is much more likely in the moment with an actual client. I think that's where you really have to be careful. I think what you're teaching here is a much more intentional, strategic use of your life experience to show your clients that you get them. But still doing it in a professional way, still doing it with taste and with discernment, and doing it in a way that is honorable to you personally as well.
Yeah.
Right. So
100%.
when you were talking about the person who is doing the postpartum work, I coached somebody who has had two adoptions, I think, and has ended up building an entire clinic around working with moms around birth trauma, all kinds of things.
Oh.
Huge need.
Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of people who are drawn to that work are drawn to it because they have been through that in some way.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I also think there's other ways to show people you get it without telling your story. You don't want, and see if you, maybe you might have some thoughts about this. Let's say you are an energy healer who has been through some kind of a serious trauma of your own, and you have found energy work to be one of the most effective ways that you did your own healing. So you want to connect with your ideal clients, but you don't want to tell them that you're a trauma survivor. Like that feels like too much. That feels inappropriate. That feels exposure. That doesn't feel good. But you still want to use that experience to inform your marketing. How would you do that?
Yeah, I think that's when it comes into day-to-day things, right? So,
Okay.
What right now is present for you. You don't have to talk about why it's present, but why are you blocked? Or what do you do to fix it? Or what's your, what is a piece of you that has changed because of the work that you're doing, right? So you don't, again, have to say why that started. But I think I heard someone recently, they were talking a lot about just being able to voice their own opinions and and represent themselves authentically. And they didn't have to say that it was because they had childhood trauma of parents who da. They just were able to explain, this was something that was really hard for me, and this is how I overcame it. And that's enough.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I think in those micro moments, if you say, here's something I think you could say, you don't have to say this is something I do. You could say, here's something a lot of my clients feel,
That is
or a lot of my clients experience. I don't know if you do this or not, but in my work, I have often seen people feel this or think this or experience this, and it'll still show people that you get them.
Yes,
Right.
that
It'll
too.
still show 'em.
Well, your experience is your story. So
Yeah.
it is, what you have seen and experienced through other people also totally
That
counts.
still counts. That's great. So y'all, as you're listening to this, what I'm hoping one of the things you're taking away is that there are lots of ways that the use of story can support your attempt or your desire to connect with your clients. And that connection, as you have heard here many times, starts way, 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 way before they show up in your office. And if you weave this into your work in a conscious, strategic way, I think you will find that your stuff stands out from other people, because most people do not do this. And the folks who are looking for you are looking for a human being. They just want a human being. And when you are sharing some of the stories that Marina's talking to us about, I think that will come through. Your humanity will show much, much better. And you do not have to be perfect. I have to tell you, it has nothing to do with therapy, but it was a great example of this. I had lunch yesterday with a realtor who is a new friend that I've been wanting to meet. And I wanted to meet her because her marketing is so good. I'm not selling a house. I'm not buying a house, but I love her marketing. And that started a few years ago in the winter when she shared she had a Facebook post about her Jeep in the snow. And it was something about when other realtors say no, we say go. And she had this whole like little video about her being out in the woods in her Jeep in the middle of terrible winter. But by golly, we're going to go find that house, whatever. And it was hilarious. It was very funny and very different. And I was like, who is this person? And I've been paying attention to her ever since. In her particular brand, she uses humor quite a bit, and it's part of who she is. But man, you talk about standing out, right? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be deep and dark. It doesn't have to be serious. It can be funny. It just has to be real. That's the key here.
I actually think people are craving light stories
Amen.
as well.
Yeah.
So tell a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell a good one. People are craving light. Tell a good one. That's really good. Marina, this is awesome. Thank you so much for this. Yeah. How can people who are like, okay, you got my attention. I want to come tell you my story, Marina, and help me get it out there. How do they do that? Where do they find you?
So our website is mgmediacreative.com. You'll see all of our stuff there. I also created a special breakdown of a worksheet, kind of going through everything we're doing here. It's sort of a condensed version of what we do one-on-one with our clients.
Great.
And so that is available at mgmediacreative.com/story.
/story. mgmediacreative.com/story. Go get that, y'all. Go get that. She created that just for you because I asked her to teach us this. I love that. Custom content. I love that.
Wendy's out here working for you guys.
I am. I totally am. I really, really am all the time. Well, thank you. I hope they'll go get that because just for the content you've shared today, it's so useful and practical. And I really think people can do something with this. So tell me, one of the things I always like to do before we close is ask, is there anything that I haven't asked you, anything I have forgotten to cover, or anything that you just feel called to share that would make this conversation complete?
I think we touched on it. I think thinking about your audience and who they are, just that they are really helping so many people, and that helping yourself and your business is the way you get to do that more.
Yeah.
And that if you feel blocked by it or overwhelmed by it or scared of it, that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah.
And that, you putting yourself out there only allows you to help more people. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why I want your people to continue doing what they do.
Love that. You putting yourself out there only allows you to help more people. Don't overthink it. Just go do it. There you go. All right. That's great. That's perfect. Yeah, that's great. All right. You guys take that to the bank, please. And go find your people and go serve your people. That's great. Thank you, Marina. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I appreciate it.
I knew it'd be worth waiting for. All right.
We made it.
We made it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you have enjoyed this as much as I have. And I hope you will go take her up on that. Go to her website and get that worksheet because that will help you reinforce what you've heard today. And then you have no excuse not to go out and do this. All right. And then reach out to Marina if you want to go deeper. And I'm sure she can help you. Have a great week, everybody. And I will see you next week right here on the Ideal Practice Podcast. Bye now. Hey, y'all. If this program has become important to you, if Ideal Practice matters, it would mean so much to me if you'd be willing to take just a minute to do one or two of the following things. First of all, would you follow or subscribe to the show here at Ideal Practice? Following me helps you because you'll never miss an episode, but it helps me as well for all kinds of reasons. To do that, all you have to do is go to the show page for Ideal Practice on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. There, just click on the plus sign that you'll usually find in the top right-hand corner, or click on the word follow that you're going to find somewhere there on that page. Of all the things, this really is the most important thing you can do for the podcast itself. While you're there, it would be extra special if you would be willing to give me a 5-star rating, and even better than that, a review with your own words. Your words matter. And when you write what you feel, what you think, you uplift and encourage others. And I love that. If you want to go a step further than that, take your favorite episode or two, one of the ones that has meant a lot to you, and share it with a friend. Could you do one or two of those things for me? I promise I will love you forever. You guys matter to me, and I value your support more than I can possibly say. Thank you, sweet friend, for anything you can do to help me out and support the show. I'll see you again soon.